Welcome to the Newsmakers Podcast. I'm Billy Hollowell, and this is a show where we go behind the headlines every day to bring you an interview with a pastor, entertainer, politician, or other notable news figure. And this is a show, again, it's daily, but it's based on our weekly TV show, which is also called Newsmakers. You can watch it on the CBN News channel and also on our YouTube page. And on this show, every day, we dive deep. It's a little more longer form with one of the people who you will often see on our Newsmakers show or across the CBN News platforms. On today's Newsmakers, journalist and filmmaker Phelim McAleer is known for exploring tough issues through movies, stage plays, books, and podcasts, and he is out with a new play opening May 13th in New York City. It's called October 7th, and it exposes the true horrors of Hamas's October 7th terror attack. With no further ado, let's welcome him to the show to tell us more about this show. So you have a new play. It's called October 7th, in their own words. What was it that motivated this project for you?
Well, we're journalists, pretty much. We're journalists, and we realized very quickly that journalists in the mainstream media, they wanted to talk about October 8th. They wanted to talk about October 9th. Nobody wanted to talk about October 7th. There was a story that wasn't being told. And that's what we specialize in, telling untold stories. I think the people protesting, and a lot of the people protesting in Colombia, if they know what they're protesting about, they don't know that without October 7th, there would be no October 8th. And that's what we wanted to say. Look, there's an origin story here that people don't know and that you need to know. So we want to tell the truth. We wanted to bring the truth to people.
And, you went, and a lot of other people obviously have been commenting on this, which is great, and talking about it and doing work, but they haven't gone on the ground. In November of 2023, you went on the ground to Israel, and this is a month after these horrific atrocities. You traveled around, you interviewed survivors, heroes, people involved in this. Talk a little bit about that process, what that was like for you as a journalist, but also as a human being emotionally.
Yeah, if I would have one criticism of the non-mainstream media, of whatever you want to call it, conservative journalism, is that they don't do enough original reporting. They're very happy to comment on stories the New York Times write about, or stories that some other mainstream media, stories that ABC criticize them, but they don't go out and do enough. And from Chris Rufo's work, exposing plagiarism, to our work, it's amazing what you get when you go out there and you realize the mainstream media are not covering this story. So yeah, we felt we should go and hear these stories and report them back. And so we went there in November. We interviewed about 20 people. We have cut it down to 13 stories. We tell their story, and as you said, you put it very well. There's stories of tragedy, there's stories of heroism, there's stories of people fighting back. There's stories of survival, resilience, and there's even, believe it or not, these are Jewish people. They find humor in the darkest places, so there's even some humor. So it was privilege. I don't like using the word privilege, but it was a remarkable privilege and honor to have these people trust us with their stories, and I think we've done a good job telling the truth, and And by the way, these are not perfect people. They're angry, they're unhappy, they're sad. They have they have different opinions. So it's a very interesting. People talk about sometimes about journalism being the first draft of history, and like to think this is a first draft of history on stage in New York, where it should be.
Yeah, and let's talk about that, because you went there, you collected these interviews. Did you know from the beginning? I mean, you obviously knew you wanted to tell the stories, you were going to do something with them. You've done everything from podcasts to plays to movies. Did you know it was going to be a play, that was going to be the way you were going to convey these stories, or was that sort of after you collected all of those interactions?
No, we always wanted to make it a play, actually, interestingly enough. And I suppose the question is, why a play? I think a play is just a great way of bringing true stories to life. Also, the story of the biggest massacre of Jews since the Holocaust, where else should that be but on stage in New York? I mean, there's nowhere else for it. Also, a play is somewhat cheaper than a movie. A play still attracts a lot of media attention. So I thought, it was a way of it was a lower cost way of getting these stories out. But the plan is, to get the media to cover this, to remind people that there was a day called October 7th, and there would be no war in Gaza now. There'd be no need for a ceasefire. There was a ceasefire on October 6th. There'd be no need for a ceasefire now if there had not been an October 7th. And people need to know that. Yeah, so we always planned to do a play, and I think we made the right decision. We've had a few previews now. The official opening is Monday, May the 13th. And it's just the reaction has been, people have been crying, people have been laughing, people have been hugging us. They just can't believe that two Irish journalists have told Israel's story in such an important and powerful way.
Have you, I mean, this is in the middle of New York, and obviously there are a lot of things happening in New York. You've had the campus protests, as you referenced before, and that's happening all over the country, but a lot happening protest-wise in New York. Have you had any negative reaction? I know you've had a lot of positive. Are people noticing it maybe on the other side, the pro-Palestinian side or the anti-Israel side?
Yeah, definitely we're getting a lot of blowback online, but I mean, I think we're the only play in New York that has opened under police protection. I think we may be the only play in decades that has opened in New York under police protection.
You guys have police protection right now. You guys have...
We have a police officer outside the play at all time. We also have our own private security. I don't want to go into the details, but you can see anyone who goes to the theater has to go through an airport-style security. So, with the X-ray machine and all that. So, that says a lot. That if you want, and by the way, I suppose I should have said the play is 100% verbatim. It's the only word. There's no added editorializing, no added characters, no added drama. It's only these people's stories told from their point of view, and so it's amazing that kind of play needs police protection in New York in 2024. You would think that the New York Times would be saying, what is wrong with the world that a play that only talks about Jewish massacres of innocent men, women, and children needs police protection? What kind of country are we? But no, they want to look the other way. They're trying to distract you to look the other way. But yeah, we're under police protection. We have our own private security, which is expensive but necessary because the truth must be told.
Yeah, and I think, that kind of brings me, and you said it a little bit before, but I want to give you another chance to drive it home, because when people come to watch this play and they sit through it and the curtain goes down and the play ends, what is it that you want them to feel and experience from their mind down to their heart?
Funny, that's a good question. And I go along with David Mamet on this one. It's not up to me to tell them what to feel or experience. He bans Q&As from his plays. He says, why do you need someone at the end to tell you what to think? It's all in the play. But I suppose, what do I want people to think? I want them to realize that, and a lot of the play, some of the play is how these people were experiencing October 6th. The domestic details, it was a holiday, the families were gathering together, it was this, it was that, it was the other. So the domestic details. So these were people with ordinary, boring, and sometimes not boring lives. Sometimes they fought with their husbands. Sometimes they didn't, they fought with their children, or they were upset, or somebody couldn't make it, or somebody could make it. The usual drama over holidays and families. And then October 7th happened at 6:30 in the morning. And I want people to realize that these were ordinary people thrust into the biggest nightmare that anyone on this planet could ever have to face. And remember that. Don't remember, let's say we will never forget. It's not that. It's remember that there was an October 6th, and that the people who are complaining about civilian casualties in Gaza and people starving in Gaza and all this, and whether you can believe those claims or not, I'm skeptical of them, to be honest. you've got to remember that this would not have happened. Every one of those deaths can be tied back to 6:30 on October 7th, when Hamas attacked, hunted down, and murdered men, women, and children for the crime of being Jewish. So when you see the pictures of civilian deaths in Gaza and the allegations of large numbers of civilian deaths, the thing is, this was the start of it. This was the start of it, and you should know that.
And also understand, in addition to that, that how many times have there been opportunities to come up with a hostage agreement or some sort of, and those have been rejected over and over and over again. The hostages could have been released, that would have eased up a lot of these actions, presumably, and that has not happened. And so there's so many parts of this that are overlooked in the discussion, where you're looking at this as somebody, you're a journalist, right? I'm a trained journalist. You look at this and you say, these are the details, and a lot of them are not being reported and they're being overlooked. And so you have this play. And one thing about you over the years that I have always found very fascinating is that you tackle, as you were saying, stories that don't get told in the mainstream media, or they don't get told in an adequate way. Another story you told, Kermit Gosnell, you told that in multiple different forms. He was an abortion doctor in Pennsylvania. What was it, just briefly, to kind of hit on that, because you cover a lot of different types of stories. What was it that attracted you to the Gosnell story?
Well, it was just an unbelievable story that had never been told. And I suppose if it was a story that confirmed a progressive narrative, we would be sick to death of hearing it, right? Like, we so far have told the Gosnell story through a movie, a New York Times best-selling book, a podcast, a photographic exhibition. We also had a play in New York about Gosnell, and that's what the progressives do. They tell their stories often and loudly and significantly, and I'm not sure we do that enough. So it just was a story that wasn't being told. It was a story, we're journalists. If it bleeds, it leads. It was a great story. Again, it's the same thing with October 7th. This is a story not being told. Now, the Gosnell story, I mean, it was a serial killer killing in plain sight. It had abortion connections. It had a race connection. He treated white women better than black women. It had government malfeasance. It had a media cover-up. It had all the elements that make a great story, but mysteriously was not being covered. So we thought we'd help the mainstream media in their failures.
Well, when I look at your career and the things that you've done, and sort of shining light into these areas where people need to see these different truths, what do you want your legacy to be, right? I've been asking people a lot over the past couple of years this question, because you have created a lot of content to get people thinking. What do you want that legacy to be in media?
He annoyed a lot of people.
That's a very simple legacy. But when you annoy people, you get them to think, right? You challenge them.
You only annoy them because you're telling them the truth, right? If you're telling them a lie, they wouldn't get annoyed. If someone lies to me, I don't get annoyed. I just go away. If someone hits me with a hard truth, then you get annoyed.
Yeah. Well, this play, October 7th, in their own words, if people want to see this, right? Maybe they want to come to New York, they want to see it. Where can they go to get information, to get tickets?
October7theplay.com. The actual title is October 7, just October 7. So it's October7theplay.com. Go there. You can buy tickets. We're running up until the middle of June 16th. Buy tickets there. You can donate to make sure that this happens. As I say, it's not cheap putting a play on in New York, and security is expensive as well. So go to October7theplay.com, buy the tickets. I'll be at every performance. Come up and introduce yourself, say that you saw me on the show, and let's have a conversation.
I love that. Let's have a conversation. And also, just to highlight that, people can get the tickets or they can donate. If there are people out there who can't get there, but they want to support this, they believe in it, they can do that over on the site there. I appreciate you joining us today. Appreciate your time.
Thanks, Billy. All the best.
That's all for today's Newsmakers podcast. Be sure to tune in for the next episode of the show, and also head over to the CBN News YouTube channel and the CBN News channel to watch Newsmakers every week. We'll see you soon.